When the plane landed, Maria looked at the small wallet in her hand. There were $500 inside. She counted the money one more time. 500. That was everything she had. She looked through the airplane window at the lights outside. Cars moved along the roads. Buildings stood in the distance. Everything looked large, unfamiliar, and full of possibilities. Maria took a deep breath. She had finally arrived in America. But she had no job. She had no close friends. She had no family waiting at the airport. And there was one more problem. She couldn't understand American English very well. Maria was 32 years old. She had spent years dreaming about coming to America. Back home, she had worked in a small office and saved money whenever she could. For 2 years, she had been preparing for this moment. She stopped buying clothes she didn't need. She cooked at home. She walked instead of taking taxis. Every month, she put a little money into her savings account. She knew $500 was not enough to build a new life. But it was enough to begin. At least, that's what she told herself. Before leaving home, her mother had asked her one final question. "Are you sure about this?" Maria had smiled. "No, but if I don't try, I'll always wonder what could have happened." Her mother had hugged her tightly. Then be careful. Now Maria was thousands of miles away. She picked up her suitcase and walked toward the airport exit. She had no idea that the next few weeks would teach her more about English, money, courage, and herself than anything she had learned before. Maria stepped outside the airport. The first thing she noticed was how fast everything seemed to move. Cars rushed past. People walked quickly. Phones rang. Announcements came from different directions. Maria stood near the entrance with her suitcase and looked at her phone. She had the address of a small room she had rented. It was not an apartment. It was a small room in a house shared with other people. But it was affordable. And right now, affordable was enough. Maria needed transportation. She walked toward the bus area. A man standing nearby looked at her suitcase. "Where are you headed?" Maria looked at him. She understood the words separately, but she wasn't sure what the whole sentence meant. "I'm sorry?" The man smiled and repeated himself. "Where are you headed?" This time, Maria understood. He was asking where she was going. "Oh, I'm going to Green Street." The man pointed toward the bus stop. "You need the number 12 bus." "Number 12? "Yes, number 12. "Thank you." Maria walked toward the bus stop. Her heart was beating quickly. It was a very short conversation. But for Maria, it felt like a small victory. She had spoken English with a stranger, and she had understood him. When the bus arrived, Maria checked the address again. She got on and sat near the window. As the bus moved through the city, she watched America pass by. Restaurants, gas stations, stores, apartment buildings, people walking their dogs, children going home from school. Everything was new. Back home, Maria knew how everything worked. She knew where to go. She knew how to ask questions. She knew what people were saying. Here, even simple things felt difficult. After almost an hour, she finally arrived at her new neighborhood. She found the house. A woman opened the door. "You must be Maria." "Yes. Come in." Maria carried her suitcase into the small room. There was a bed, a desk, and a narrow window. It wasn't beautiful, but it was a place to sleep. Maria put her suitcase down. Then she opened her wallet. $500. She counted it again. She knew she needed to be careful. Tomorrow she would begin looking for a job. The next morning, Maria woke up early. She put on her best clothes and printed several copies of her resume. She had worked before. She was responsible. She was willing to learn. But she knew there was one problem: her English. She walked to a small cafe near her house. A sign in the window said, "Help Wanted." Maria took a deep breath and opened the door. A woman behind the counter looked at her. "Can I help you?" Maria smiled. "Yes, I'm looking for a job." The woman handed her an application. "Fill this out and I'll talk to you when you're finished." Maria sat down. Most of the application was easy. Then she reached one question she didn't understand. She read it several times. She didn't want to ask. She was afraid the woman would think her English was terrible. But finally, she stood up. "Excuse me, could you help me with this question?" The woman smiled. "Of course." Maria felt relieved. She finished the application. Then she had a short interview. The manager spoke quickly. Maria understood some things and missed others. At one point she said, "I'm sorry. Could you say that again?" The manager repeated the question more slowly. Maria answered. When the interview ended, the manager told her to come back the next day. It wasn't a job yet, but it was a chance. On her way home, Maria stopped at a grocery store. She bought bread, eggs, rice, fruit, and water. At the checkout, the total appeared on the screen. $27.64. Maria looked at the number. $27 didn't seem like much, but she only had $500. Every dollar mattered now. When she returned to her room, she wrote down every expense. Room, food, transportation, phone. She looked at the total. Then she looked at the money in her wallet. She had spent more than she expected. Maria became nervous. She needed a job quickly. The next morning, Maria returned to the cafe. The manager gave her another interview. This time, she understood more. At the end, the manager smiled. "We can give you a chance." Maria wasn't sure she had heard correctly. "A chance? You can start Monday." Maria smiled. "Thank you." She walked outside with tears in her eyes. She had a job. It wasn't her dream job, but it was a beginning. There was only one problem. She still had several days before her first paycheck, and her money was disappearing. During her first week at the cafe, Maria worked hard. She cleaned tables. She prepared drinks. She took orders. She washed dishes. She arrived early and stayed until the work was finished. But the hardest part wasn't the work. It was the English. One morning, a customer walked up to the counter. "I'd like a coffee and a sandwich, please." Maria understood. Then the customer asked, "Can I get that to go?" Maria stopped. To go? She had heard those words before, but she wasn't sure what they meant. The customer looked confused. Jake, one of her coworkers, noticed. "To go means you want to take it with you," he explained. "Oh." Maria smiled at the customer. "Yes, to go." The customer smiled. "No problem." Later that day, another customer spoke very quickly. Maria understood only half of the order. She smiled and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that." The customer repeated the order. This time, Maria understood. That sentence became one of the most useful sentences she had ever learned. I didn't catch that. It meant, I didn't understand what you said. Maria began writing down real expressions in her notebook. Not complicated grammar, not long vocabulary lists, real sentences. How's it going? Could you say that again? I didn't catch that. Can I get that to go? I'll take care of it. She practiced them every night. Little by little, English started becoming less frightening, but her financial situation was becoming more frightening. At the end of her first week, Maria opened her wallet. She counted the money. Only 287 remained. She stared at the bills. She had arrived in America with $500. In 1 week, almost half was gone. Maria sat quietly on her bed. She began calculating again. If she spent too much, she could run out of money before she became financially stable. For the first time, she understood that this wasn't a vacation. She was trying to build a life, and she had to be careful. Weeks passed. Maria continued working. She became faster. She learned the menu. She learned how to talk to customers. She learned how to make small talk. One morning, Jake asked, Maria, can you cover the front for a few minutes? Yes, no problem. Maria understood immediately. She didn't need him to repeat himself. Jake smiled. Your English is getting better. Maria smiled. I'm trying. And she was. Every day. After work, she practiced. Sometimes she listened to English while cooking. Sometimes she repeated sentences while walking home. Sometimes she stood in front of the mirror and spoke to herself. She wasn't trying to sound perfect. She was trying to become comfortable. Then, one afternoon, Maria received her first paycheck. She held the envelope in her hands for several seconds. It wasn't a large paycheck, but to Maria, it meant everything. She had earned it herself. She sat on her bed and looked at it. She remembered the airport, the suitcase, the $500, the fear, the first bus ride, the first job interview, the first difficult conversation. She called her mother. How are you? Her mother asked. Maria smiled. I'm good. Are you working? Yes. Is it difficult? Maria looked at her paycheck. Yes. Then she smiled. But I'm learning. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Do you want to come home? Maria thought about it. A few weeks earlier, she might have said yes, but now she had a different answer. No, Mom, I want to stay. She didn't know exactly what would happen next, but she wanted to find out. One night, after a long day at work, Maria returned to her room. She was exhausted. She checked her bank account. Her rent was coming soon. Her next paycheck was still several days away. She calculated her expenses. Then she looked at the remaining money. She felt a wave of fear. What if I can't do this? She sat beside the window. Outside, the city was full of lights. People were laughing in restaurants. Cars moved through the streets. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to go. Maria felt completely alone. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from her mother. Are you okay? Maria typed, Yes, I'm fine. Then she stopped. She deleted the message. She called instead. Her mother answered. Maria? Hi, Mom. What happened? Maria took a deep breath. I don't know if I can do this. For a few seconds, her mother said nothing. Then she said, You don't have to be strong every minute. Maria closed her eyes. You can be tired. You can be afraid. You can cry. But don't let one difficult night decide your whole future. Maria wiped her eyes. She looked at the small piece of paper on her desk. Before leaving home, she had written, I can start again. Her mother asked, Why did you go there? Maria thought about it. To build a better life. Then give yourself time. Maria nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. That night, she wrote 3 things on a piece of paper. Go to work, practice English, spend less money. It wasn't a big plan, but it was enough for tomorrow. The next morning she got up. She went to work. She made mistakes. She learned. She kept going. And something slowly changed. Maria stopped being afraid of every mistake. When she didn't understand someone, she asked. When she didn't know a word, she looked it up. When someone spoke too quickly, she said, Could you speak a little more slowly? She realized something important. She didn't need perfect English. She needed the courage to keep speaking. Months passed. Maria's English improved. She could understand conversations more easily. She could make phone calls. She could talk to customers without preparing every sentence in her head. She still made mistakes. But mistakes no longer frightened her. Her life changed too. She made friends. She became more confident at work. She learned how to manage her money. She even started saving a little each month. One evening, almost a year after arriving in America, Maria opened the drawer beside her bed. Inside was the old piece of paper. I can start again. She smiled. Then she remembered the $500. When she first arrived, she thought that money was the most important thing she had. Now she understood something different. The money had only given her a beginning. It was her decisions that changed her life. Every morning she got out of bed. Every day she went to work. Every night she practiced English. Every time she failed, she tried again. Every time she felt afraid, she moved forward. The $500 eventually disappeared, but what Maria learned remained. She learned that asking for help was not weakness. She learned that speaking imperfect English was better than staying silent. She learned that being alone did not mean she would always be alone. And she learned that you don't need to have everything before you begin. Sometimes, you simply begin with what you have. Maria looked at the old piece of paper one final time. Then she wrote a new sentence underneath it. I don't need to know everything. I just need to take the next step. She closed the drawer. The next morning, she would go to work. She would continue learning. She would continue building her life. She still didn't know exactly where her journey would take her. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Because she had learned something much more valuable than English. She had learned to trust herself. And that was what the $500 had really given her. Not a perfect life. Not an easy life. Just a chance to begin. And sometimes, a chance is all we need. English Learning Review. Let's review some useful expressions from Maria's story. Where are you headed? This means, where are you going? You can say, where are you headed after work? I am looking for a job. Use this when you are searching for work. I'm looking for a full-time job. Could you say that again? Use this when you don't understand someone. Sorry, could you say that again? I didn't catch that. This means I didn't understand what you said. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Manda to go. In American English, this means you want to take food or a drink with you. Can I get a coffee to go? Now let's practice. I moved to America with only $500. Pause, repeat. I moved to America with only $500. Now, I didn't understand everything, but I kept trying. Pause, repeat. I didn't understand everything, but I kept trying. And finally, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to keep going. Repeat. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to keep going. Maria's story reminds us that learning English takes time. You will make mistakes. You will forget words. Sometimes you won't understand what people say. That's okay. Don't wait until your English is perfect before you speak. Speak, listen, make mistakes, try again, and keep moving forward. Because you don't need to have everything to start. You just need the courage to start with what you have.